Please don't eat her now. How's it going, Woods and Forest community? Today we're going to focus on a new mini-series within the Wild Vivarium show. We're going to talk about the eastern gray tree frogs and the American toads. We're going to focus on whether or not we should keep them together, and we're going to go back in time at the end of this video and I'll show you some of the footage between Melania the eastern gray tree frog and my two American toads, Ace and Pius, when I tried to mix them together. But for now, we're going to talk about some of the differences and some of the similarities. As you can see, we start off the video focusing on Navi and Wellsboro, the eastern American toads. Wellsboro being the toad on top and Navi being the toad on the bottom. It's truly incredible to see how much Wellsboro enjoys being with her. He wasn't like this with the other female toads that he lived with, so I could truly say he has a thing for Navi. Keeping the two together was a bit of a concern at first, because Navi is such an aggressive toad. She would easily consume another frog or toad if it was smaller than her. She bullies Wellsboro a lot of times whenever they eat, so I have to make sure I put enough food in for Wellsboro to be able to get some food, because Navi will dominate. And this is one of the top reasons why I think American toads and eastern gray tree frogs should probably be kept separate, because of toads like Navi. Any female American toad that's healthy is going to outcompete just about any smaller sized frog, regardless on the size or the species. Here we get a chance to see Dante, the male eastern gray tree frog. He's doing much better after his last vet visit. He really didn't want to be a part of this episode though, he just wanted to relax and enjoy himself, so we decided to move on. We'll have more updates on Dante in future Wild Vivariums episodes. Arguably, the most photogenic frog I've ever owned is Meredith, the female eastern gray tree frog. For everything that she's been featured in, from newspaper articles to news shows and everything in between, she's truly at home and comfortable in front of the camera. It doesn't seem to faze her, bother her, or stress her out. But this goes back to the bullying part. You wouldn't see a frog like her so calm and cool if she was sharing the limelight with the American toads in the habitat. Gray tree frogs seem to have the tendency to be more coy and timid, and they want to wait instead of going and striking like how the American toads do. So that would cause a conflict right out of the gate. You'd have to figure out how you would feed both species, and it's not as easy as what it seems. A lot of people think that frogs and toads are mindless eating machines. However, both of these species are a good example of how that's not the case. It's true American toads and eastern gray tree frogs are a generalist species. They'll take on whatever they can overpower. However, if something makes them sick or something hurts them, they'll choose later on not to target that prey item. They'll completely avoid it. Herpetologist Frank Indiviglia reported in his blog that southern toads were given the opportunity to eat an unidentified species of wasp. However, after they got stung by that wasp, they chose not to target that as a prey item again. They threw the wasp in, the toads wouldn't go after it. They offered some dragonflies, and the toads devoured them quickly. So it showed on a small scale that they're not just mindless eating machines. There is a method to their madness. How would you feel if you got stung by a wasp in your stomach, or if you got poisoned by a caterpillar? I'm sure you wouldn't want to eat anything like that either. Neither do they. There's one gray tree frog who stands head and shoulders above the rest. She's blessed physically, she's an automatic hunter, and there's some type of a mean streak in her that I haven't seen in other gray tree frogs. She definitely dominates the enclosure, and because of the way that I feed them, Meredith and Dante are able to live with her, but Melania is nothing short of a miniature beast, the way that she handles herself. And I can't help but think maybe she developed this behavior by living with American toads. You see, in 2019, Melania had the chance to be the first gray tree frog to live with my American toads Ace and Pius after everybody had been treated for parasites, so this was going to mean everybody was at their very best. The best of the American toads, and Melania at her best. Overall, I consider this enclosure and this habitat to be a failure because there was a lot of things that I didn't know back then that I know now that would have caused it to fail. There were still parasites present. Originally, I thought in 2019 we could completely eradicate them and wipe them out, but that wasn't the case. So there were parasites living in here with the animals. I trust Ace and Pius with everything because I've had them the longest and I know their behavior. They're definitely not like Wellsboro and Navi. They weren't going to try to eat her. However, you could see how curious and interested in Melania Ace was. This wasn't something that would go away. For no reason, she would just continue to go up to her. And you have to imagine being a smaller frog, this would be super intimidating. I mean, look at the size of Ace and look at the size of Melania. Easily, if Ace wanted to, she could have eaten her, especially when she got within inches of her. And just like that, Ace would never leave wherever Melania went. I'm not sure why this is, and Pius was also coming out and hanging out by this log that I put in. I had to actually install this log so Melania could get away from them because they wouldn't leave her alone. She wasn't trying to go to get water, she wouldn't try to eat, she became very immunosuppressed, and it caused her to get the parasites and develop a very bad level of them. They could have actually killed her. While I'm aware other keepers have been able to make this work, for the general keeper for the Frog and Toad Facebook group and our reptile forum, I highly recommend that you don't try this, because I wasn't even aware of how curious and how persistent my toads were. I'm using a security camera that monitors day and night, and I had no idea that they would never leave her alone. They would never leave her sight, so she would never be able to eat or go get water. This almost cost her her life. And it's something that eventually would have caused the toads theirs, because the parasites that she was building up and developing would have eventually become something that they had to face. Just keep that in mind if you want to keep these species. Sometimes they're not better together, sometimes less is more. Keep one species in one enclosure and one in the other. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.